Ho ho ho! What's going on, guys? 8BitGlitch79 here, and welcome back to the 12 nostalgic days of Christmas. Now, I hope you've been enjoying the series so far, and be sure to subscribe and hit that bell, because I'm going to have guests almost in every episode, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. Grab yourself a hot drink, nestle down by the fire, and let's get nostalgic. Okay guys, so if you're familiar with my channel at all, and from the shirt I'm wearing, you know what my all-time favorite video game is. And that is the very first Contra. Now before I talk about Contra, I want to turn it over to the Bandana Gamer to tell us one of his nostalgic games. Take it away, Bandana.
Hey everybody, it is John Brown, the one and only Bandana Gamer, coming to you with a collab video with 8BitGlitch79 to talk about the game that I have the most nostalgic feelings for. Actually today, when prepping this video, I ended up popping this game in and spent about 2 hours playing through, just loving the fact that my memory is what it is and I can still find power-ups, I can still find all the hidden secrets and get the special items. Without much reference to guides or anything like that. This is a game that is near and dear to my heart, and it is Mega Man X for the Super Nintendo. I was a huge fan of the Mega Man series as a kid. I still remember going to the video store and seeing new ones come out, and that's how I found out about new releases. I didn't do magazines as a 5-year-old and 6-year-old and 7-year-old. But going to the video store and finding a new one. I still remember seeing Mega Man 4 for the first time. But Mega Man X was just something special. I'd just gotten into the Super Nintendo and I was hanging out at the pool, and my best friend Patrick had just been to a birthday party where they had been playing video games and they had played Mega Man X. And he came in just gushing about what an amazing experience Mega Man X was. That it had an amazing story, that it was not the 10th Mega Man game, which is what everyone said it was, but it was a new game. X was a new character who was a much more advanced robot, and that he had been frozen to kind of learn if he would make the right choices, and that there was all these upgrades. There was armor capsules and health capsules, and the big thing that still sticks out in my mind was when he told me that the bad guys were animals. You didn't have a Gutsman or Cutman anymore. You had Spark Mandrill or Launch Octopus or Chill Penguin. That just blew my mind, and I was so stoked. I had to, that day, take several things into trade at my local microplay and pick up my copy of Mega Man X. And since then, it has been a love affair. I've bought it so many times when they've re-released it in new collections. But there's still nothing that compares to putting the actual cartridge in a Super Nintendo and playing through this game. I absolutely, absolutely adore this game, and this is the game that hits me in all the feels. Well, that'll do it for this one. I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.
Thanks a lot, Bandana, for doing that for the show. I truly appreciate it, and I have the best wishes for you and yours for the holiday season. Well, Contra, as we all know, it's my #1 favorite NES game, probably favorite game of all time. So, what's my nostalgia behind Contra? Well, as I said in previous videos, didn't have much money growing up, so getting new games, I either had to trade games, I had to find them at flea markets, tag sales, things like that. However I could. Once in a while used at a store if the price was right. Well, I could never get my hands on this. I didn't get this game until I was much older, and I got it at a flea market. I was probably in my teens when I finally got my own copy of it. But my experience with it is something that I have nostalgia for, not the purchasing of it. So, the first time I played Contra was over a friend's house. Now, we used to go visit one of my mom's sisters, my aunt, almost every weekend. And she lived in an apartment complex, not a complex, but apartment buildings and stuff. And the building right behind her, or right behind her apartment, was two sisters and a brother that I used to play with all the time as a kid growing up, and there was another kid in another building on the other side, and we would hang out all the time. We got in a lot of trouble, a lot of things I won't say as fear of jail. No, just kidding. No, we did some pretty bad things, as kids do sometimes when you're bored and trying to figure out what to do. But one thing we did a lot of was playing NES. Now, the two games I can clearly remember always playing was The Legend of Zelda, which could easily be an episode on this series, but the other was Contra. Now, that was the first time I was exposed to it, and I absolutely loved it. I was a kid of the 80s. I loved Arnold and the Stallone movies the most. They were my two favorites. Stallone probably a little bit above Arnold as far as my fandom, but definitely something I gravitated to. So seeing a video game that was pretty much based around all those movies in a sense was just mind-blowing. I never played the arcade version at the time. This was my first exposure to Contra, so I had no idea there was a arcade game until much later. So the NES was my first exposure to it, and I remember clearly for a while we couldn't beat it. Even with the Konami code, we couldn't beat it. We did eventually, I remember, but I remember distinctly one playthrough. We got like farthest than we ever got before, and I was super psyched. I can't remember how far we were, but I just remember it's like, well, this could be the time. This could be it. And then all of a sudden, the kid's sister yells from the other room, "Guys, the Never-Ending Story's on." Her brother, my friend, freaked out, shut the Nintendo off, and said, "Let's go." And I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing? We were right there. We were going to do it." And stuff. He goes, "Dude, the Never-Ending Story's on." Now, let me remind you, I didn't have much money, and in the town I lived in, couldn't even get cable, even if we could afford it. So I don't know about movies that are coming out, things like that. I didn't see that. We got one channel for a lucky, CBS, and that was it. So this Never-Ending Story thing was like, what are you talking about? Who cares? And so I reluctantly walked over to the TV, sat there, all disgruntled, because we were so far into the game, the farthest we ever gotten, to watch this movie, The Never-Ending Story. Well, let me tell you, I fell in love with The Never-Ending Story that day. Not only was I that close in Contra, but one of my favorite movies as a child I got to experience. So for some odd reason, whenever I think about Contra in the NES, I always think about The Never-Ending Story. And when I watch Never-Ending Story, or somebody talks about it, I immediately think about Contra on the NES. I know it's like completely two different worlds and two different things that really wouldn't go together, but it's something that does to me. And so that's my memory of Contra and The Never-Ending Story, I guess. So thank you for tuning in to this 12 nostalgic days of Christmas. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're enjoying the series. So until the next episode, this is 8-Bit Glitch 79, and I'm glitching out.